if you sort of scope right back out and just understand that, we are sort of spinning around on this tiny little speck of a planet. I guess I've been watching some clips, reading some articles, etc., Steve, about the universe and how big it is, for instance. We'll get to that in a minute. But just to start with, it really does put all those other discussions in a different light when you understand just how big the universe is, just even how big the galaxy is, and even our neighboring galaxy, which we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah, well, that's quite right. I mean, I think the internet, and especially the socials, which, really drive most of the internet usage these days, really focuses very singularly on ourselves. Everything from it's all about me to echo chambers. So when you step back and you see how big the universe is, then it really puts everything we do every day in perspective.
Absolutely. So let's start with the first example. I think we may have touched on this a few years ago. I feel like I've got a memory of us discussing this before, but obviously you can Google this quite easily. But the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxy collision, which I'm going to probably take exception to the word collision there shortly, but that. When you think of the scale of everything in terms of that, and also spoiler alert for everyone, you don't have to freak out. This isn't going to happen for another 4 billion years, so it's not anything we need to worry about.
I thought you were going to do an Orson Welles in us there, Ben.
Oh my God, the Andromeda galaxy! I can see it in the sky now.
It's happening. It's real.
Absolutely. What I found fascinating about this is the term collision is great for a headline, but actually looking at it, not to say that it wouldn't be a disruptive event, it's just that, and again, this is where your mind boggles, there is so much space between everything, even within our galaxy and also obviously the Andromeda galaxy as well, that even when they start to do their interactive little dance, when they start to come together, which is probably a more accurate description of what's going on, that it's likely that a good chunk of the material is actually not going to collide against each other as well, which is quite fascinating. Not to say that it not potentially wouldn't happen. It's just that the location of where all those stars and planets and nebula, black holes or whatever, well, obviously the black holes will get up to no good in the middle there when they're circling each other. But it just kind of boggles the mind that, that is also like a feature of it.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? The scale, two galaxies merging, and I'm not much of an astrophysicist, but I guess it's a gravitational collision effectively, because while there won't be physical collision necessarily, there'll be a lot of interaction between the gravities of the two galaxies. And Andromeda, I think, is about 3 times the size of our galaxy, so whichever way or however the two galaxies interact, as they effectively pass through each other, and I believe end up becoming one with combined mass, it'll be a different world. But rest assured, we probably won't be here, so it probably won't matter. Well, certainly not where we are today.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is that by that time the Earth's not going to be inhabitable anyway. I guess it would just be a curious trip down nostalgia lane if we're still existing at that point, that maybe we could observe our planet and solar system, or old solar system for lack of a better term, if we've gone somewhere else, just to see what happened to it. Or even that, as this article was suggesting, that there's still a small chance that although we'd still probably get reconfigured into a different position, the solar system anyway, there's a chance it could be ejected completely as a result of this collision, and it just gets ejected into interstellar space.
That's right. I mean, and one thing probably to put a bit of a sci-fi sort of bent on it anyway is that, we're talking about huge timescales. So, 3-4 billion years. But people tend to overlook it, and coming back to sort of, focusing just on what we're doing and what's happening immediately around us. The fact is that at some point, humanity either has to leave this planet and go into space permanently, or we will cease to exist. It's a very interesting concept, and once again, it's a concept that's much bigger, much larger than I think the way many people view our future today.
Absolutely. And of course, there's the mind-boggling topic of just how big the universe is, and I guess there's quickly an interesting two ways of looking at it. One is just calculating the potential for how big it is, and again, we've got that article where they said they've got this calculation that they can work out. But then there's also just the concept of maybe our understanding of how big it is can never really be determined, because we can only go by the light that gets to our planet that we can see. So in other words, there's the universe and the observable universe that we have to consider.
Oh, that's right. And then amongst that, there is still a lot about the observable universe and the building blocks of the universe that we don't know. And until we can possibly know those things, we probably can't go very far out into space. Maybe areas of the solar system, but to truly explore deep space or even our galactic neighborhood will take millions of years, maybe, until we can master some greater knowledge of the building blocks of the universe, so we can manipulate it to our advantage.
And for anyone worried that at the time that there might be a galaxy collision going on, that whole collision is probably going to take hundreds of millions of years to undertake as well. So, and maybe that's one thing also to consider, that we have a time reference of our lives. We understand maybe in terms of a century or decades or whatever, which just doesn't compute in the same way as the timescales of how the universe works.
Well, the timescales of the universe and the size of the universe are huge. They're just huge. They're beyond really anything we can imagine. And when you consider really that life on Earth, for instance, has only really sort of gathered any pace in the last probably 500 million years, you think, gee, that goes to show there was 3.5 billion years prior to that where, pretty much there was no life, or certainly not life that we'd recognise. And it just makes you wonder, like, on those sorts of timescales, then the couple of billion years until we have to leave the planet, is it a long time, or is it actually quite a short time?
Well, hopefully we've gotten over our social media arguments by that point, that we can get together and do something about it.
That's right.